Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today at Illuminate. My name is Andrea Fumagalli, Senior Director, Orchestration and Automation. I'm pleased to be here today with my colleague Cody McPherson, Senior Solution Engineer, and we will take you to a journey through automation to understand how to empower and accelerating the SecOps operations with embedded automation. We'll take you through three major scenarios. The powerful detection and response to get started. Then we will move to the improved incident response. And finally, last but not least, the best one, which is automation as a service. Sumo Logic offers an end-to-end solution to manage the whole life cycle of cybersecurity incidents, from detection, which usually starts from log ingestion, till the containment, remediation, and eradication of the real threats. Now, that said, I would suggest let's get started and let's pass it over to Cody so he can take us through the different scenarios. Cody?
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrea. So the first scenario that we're going to talk about here is really between SIEM and SOAR, the ability to leverage powerful detection and response capabilities across, of course, Cloud SIEM Enterprise and Cloud SOAR. And so in this first scenario is one that we see pretty commonly within this space today. You have the ability to leverage powerful yet generic capabilities across SIEM and SOAR. And so if we dig into this scenario a little bit, starting on the SIEM side, Cloud SIEM enables us to ingest and normalize raw security data and then leverage our real-time rules engine to surface security relevant signals. So the platform will then begin to intelligently cluster these related signals into a high fidelity actionable alert that we call an insight. So an insight then is a collection of related signals, all typically based off of an entity of some kind. So these insights can then be ingested directly into Cloud SOAR to further orchestrate and automate the response to a threat that we've identified within Cloud SIEM Enterprise. Now, it's important to note here that Cloud SOAR also supports the ability to directly ingest alerts from other external data sources that are not necessarily feeding into the SIEM, such as the continuous intelligence platform. So taking this one step further, the context-driven approach of our insights really allows analysts to quickly make a determination and manually take meaningful action on a threat that we've identified. So bringing SOAR into this conversation, Cloud SOAR further enhances our capability to respond to something that we have identified within Cloud SIEM by automating the triage, the enrichment, escalation, and ultimately the remediation of an insight directly within the platform. And this relationship between SIEM and SOAR is, as I've mentioned, one of the most common configuration that we see today. So moving into the second scenario, what we're doing here is kind of building on the relationship between SIEM and SOAR. And so the next evolution of that relationship is really focused on improving the incident response between, in this case, Cloud SIEM Enterprise and Cloud SOAR. And so if we dig into this scenario, we're able to leverage the deep integration that we have today between Cloud SIEM Enterprise and Cloud SOAR to intelligently automate the incident response process. And so what that looks like is Cloud SIEM, again, will generate notable insights that are based off of an entity. As well, we factor in severity and dwell time factors as the rules engine will fire a signal. So we're then able to move into Cloud SOAR and leverage the Sumo Logic Cloud SIEM Enterprise integration to execute automated enrichment of those entities identified in an insight and use Cloud SOAR's built-in playbooks to then respond to whatever it is that we've surfaced within Cloud SIEM. Now, it's notable here to mention that the enrichment results that we generate within this playbook are also posted back to the insight itself within the enrichment tab, which allows an analyst to review those results, review that context to aid in their decision-making process. And so as far as that decision-making process goes, we also take that one step further. So within Cloud SIEM Enterprise, an analyst can promote critical insights directly to Cloud SOAR as an incident from Cloud SIEM. where a playbook can then be configured to automatically trigger upon that incident being created within the SOAR platform. Now, this capability can also be used to execute more formulaic playbooks that allow us to execute automated containment or remediation, distribute notifications or escalations, or even add supporting evidence or details to an existing incident within Cloud SOAR. So incidents triggered in this manner are also bidirectionally synced across both SIM and SOAR. So all of the contextual detail that we've gathered and the updates that we've made at both the incident and insight levels are all linked and synced across both solutions. So you have visibility at any given time across both Cloud SIM Enterprise and Cloud SOAR into what the status of a given alert is in this case. So taking a look at the visual behind this in terms of what this looks like within Cloud SIM Enterprise. As an analyst is investigating an insight, they have the ability to not only create an incident from an insight, they can also add an insight to an existing incident. So whether it be creating a completely new incident within Cloud SOAR or adding to an existing one for evidentiary purposes, they have the ability to do that directly within the Cloud SIM Enterprise UI. And so what that looks like is they can, it's all wizard driven. They have the ability to, for example, create an incident and invoke a specified template, or in other words, a playbook to then run against that incident once it's created within Cloud SOAR. So the goal of leveraging this deep integration between SIM and SOAR is really the ability to reduce the time it takes to triage and remediate, to reduce the false positive rates, and ultimately provide the enrichment data that we're gathering both at the insight or incident levels to accelerate the overall investigation process. And so we initially do that with Cloud SOAR's daemons, which will connect to Cloud SIM at a regular interval to check for newly generated insights or a newly generated alert. So once pulled in, these insights will trigger the creation of an incident within Cloud SOAR, and then automated playbooks are invoked to, for example, triage and enrich or remediate a given incident once it's created. And then, as we've mentioned, these playbook enrichment results, the outputs of this playbook as it runs, are then posted back to the related Cloud SIM insight. Now, if we take a look at visually what this looks like within the Cloud SOAR platform, Cloud SOAR has built-in incident management capabilities, and this is absolutely something that we can leverage in this larger scenario that we're talking about. So within Cloud SOAR's incident view, we have the ability to initially take a look at the overview of a given incident, understand various characteristics of this particular alert on which the incident is based. And then the analyst can further dig in from there. So we have the ability to view the playbooks that are attached and running against this incident. We can see the entities that have been extracted and are then being enriched by this playbook. And we also have the ability to understand any file attachments that have been attached to this incident, any notes or tasks that are being surfaced. It's all built into the platform and allows an analyst to cohesively investigate an alert of any kind within Cloud SOAR. Now, if we take a look at what this looks like on the Cloud SIM Enterprise side, I've mentioned a couple times that we have the ability to post enrichment data or data in general to the enrichment tab of a Cloud SIM Insight. And so one of the things that we want to do from a bidirectional sync perspective is, as we are gathering data, whether it be in SIM or SOAR, we want to make sure that both platforms have the same level of visibility into what it is we're looking at. And so on the SIM side, the way that we do that is the playbook within Cloud SOAR that is running is posting enrichment data back to the insight within the enrichments tab. So if you look at the screenshot here, we are seeing an output of an Active Directory search for a given user. So we can understand role and potential privileges, if you will. And we can also leverage the outputs from a threat intelligence scan, for example, virus totals, URL reputation analysis to understand is this a true positive URL, a suspicious URL that I should be concerned with as an analyst. And I can leverage this data to then ultimately make a decision about what my next step should be. Now, if we talk about the power of progressive automation as we kind of build up to the automation as a service capability, Cloud SOAR can execute various workflows, which we of course call playbooks, to process incoming alerts, whether it be from SIM or otherwise. And the playbooks in particular are graphical node-based workflows that allow us to intuitively implement a given process or actionable standard operating procedure for the SOC. Those are driven by our integrations, and specifically, our integrations are very flexible. So we have over 300 integrations available today. We also have over 300 playbooks or out-of-the-box playbook templates or best practice examples of how we might handle a given threat available directly within the platform. And these are all updated weekly. Now, all of this content is then delivered, as I mentioned, directly in the platform via CloudSource App Central. Now, if we dig into the components of a playbook and what it is that we can accomplish within CloudSource node-based playbook builder, playbooks contain various types of actions or operators. So we have the ability to define enrichment or notification actions. We can also define containment or even schedule an action within a playbook. In terms of making a decision or branching off a given playbook, we have what we call conditional logic gates or nodes, which allow us to make decisions or evaluate the outputs of a previous action to dictate what our next step should be in general. We can then also to provide the ability to interact, allow a user to interact with a playbook to make decision-making steps via user choices or tasks. And then for everything else, we can also define custom actions to aid or enhance the data processing or transformation ability of a given playbook. And the open integration framework can be used to further extend the automation that we're talking about here, to apply further custom logic, as well as daemons and triggers to further enhance not only the ability to execute playbooks, but also properly make sure that the playbooks themselves have the proper data to operate on top of. So let's take a look at an example of a very basic playbook workflow that we see quite commonly in the source spaces today. But this is leveraging CloudSource UI-based or node-based playbook builder. And so what we commonly do as we initially kick off a playbook is there's a series of enrichment actions where we're going to gather the initial data that we need to further investigate an alert, an insight, or otherwise. And so within this playbook, you'll see the 3 green nodes at the beginning of this workflow from left to right. So that's going to be gathering threat intelligence data, internal asset data. We are then going to leverage the purple conditional node kind of in the center there to evaluate those outputs. And then you'll see that node splitting off this playbook into multiple different logic paths, if you will. So within the upper path, we can surface those outputs to an analyst and ask them the question of, depending on our enrichment results, do we need to take any action? Do we need to remediate or contain? And if the answer to that is no, we can go to the bottom path here, which is let's run a second analysis. And if nothing comes back, maybe we can automatically close this out and tag it as a false positive. And so in both scenarios, we are not only accelerating that investigation process by enriching data in an automated fashion, we are also very quickly allowing the analyst to make a decision, or maybe the analyst doesn't even see it at all because we've already determined that it was a false positive and have closed this particular alert that the playbook is associated with. And with that, I will hand it over to Andrea.
Thank you very much, Cody. Now it's time to dig into the last scenario, which is the most interesting. This represents the future of SOC automation, and it's the concept of automation as a service. Sumo Logic's automation as a service, which is powered by CloudSource, is available as a multi-tenancy, high availability, high scalable, and cloud-native service, which is typically leveraging Kubernetes technology. This service can be invoked natively from Cloud CM, and the automated actions are implemented leveraging AWS Lambda functionalities. The orchestration of product and service available and existing inside the customer's environment is performed through another component, which is named automation bridge, that should be installed into the customer's security ecosystem. The CloudSource automation service allows customers to define the most interesting and relevant connectors to integrate with the external technologies that they have already installed at their premise. These connectors are what we call typically integrations. Connectors make actions available to be used while designing the playbooks. Cody just showed us an example of a playbook that was composed by different boxes. Those boxes are the actions that are provided by these integration connectors. Actions are identified by colors. Green is enrichment, red is containment, blue are notifications, and so on. And of course, all the playbooks can be created leveraging the actions that are made available by the connectors that are being activated, depending on the infrastructure of the customer. And of course, on top of the actions, we have also operators that can be used. Now, let's take a look how all this looks through the interface. So this is a CSE CloudCM interface. You see on the left-hand side the selection of the specific technologies that have been activated for performing the enrichment. And here, of course, it's up to the user to decide what's the one that they want to consider. And on the right-hand side of the screen, you see the selection of the IOC that will be enriched in these selected technologies. Of course, once the Cloud SOAR automation service has completed performing the enrichment, and this happens usually when a rule in CloudCM triggers, then these results are posted back to the CloudCM. This is a concept that Cody has already introduced, and I will take the chance to show it in more additional details. It's possible the enrichment functionalities through automation as a service is available either for signals and for insights, and all properties, either of signals or insights, are propagated into the automation service and used as inputs for running the playbook and executing the appropriate enrichment actions. Of course, we have, while posting back results into CloudCM, we have the flexibility to decide what are the details that we want to propagate, what are the, let's say, different characteristics of the results that should be displayed through the CloudCM interface. So this is easily done while configuring the integration and deciding what are these details to be propagated. Now, let's dig quickly into what is a playbook, what can implement. So the playbook, as we mentioned, is a graphical representation of a workflow with different types of actions. These actions can, let's say, interact also with external technologies. For example, it's possible to update a ticket in an external ticketing system. We can distribute automatically notifications, of course, via email, or the most popular instant messaging technologies. I'm thinking of Microsoft Teams, Slack, Telegram, Skype, and so on. And all these, let's say, technologies are available through this concept of connectors. Additionally, inside the playbook, it's possible to run custom actions. And in custom actions, we can implement specific logic that represents part, maybe a step part of one of the standard operating procedure of the customers. Of course, once results are posted back to CloudCM, it's possible to dig into these results of the playbook, and additional investigations can be done by the analyst reviewing the specific results of the automation. Now, this is an example of propagating back the results into CloudCM interface. As you can see here, two different examples of the flexibility that I mentioned previously. The first one is the enrichment done through Abuse IPDB, and only a couple of details are propagated back, while the second one refers to virus total. And as you can see here, many more details are propagated. So either depending on the preference of the customer or the info that are made available by that specific technology. But in both cases, of course, you can decide the amount of info that will be made available to the analysts working inside CloudCM. With that said, Cody, I think I would like if you can wrap up and summarize what we have presented today. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. So as we've covered, automation as a service is kind of where we're heading, our next frontier, if you will. And we've put a lot of work into, how we reach this point, whether it be taking the generic approach of SIM and SOAR and further enhancing and providing deeper integration there. But if we talk about automation as a service for a moment, it really enables security teams to accelerate the incident response process by providing that threat intelligence data directly to the analyst. But it also allows us to smoothly leverage custom enrichment data or enrichment data of any kind that you want to post to the Cloud SIM Insight interface and its respective enrichment tab. And then lastly here, this obviously all contributes to empowering analysts to make high confidence determinations and take effective and swift action against a threat that has been identified. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here at Illuminate. We, of course, hope this has been an informative session. And if you would like to dive a little bit deeper into these technologies, feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Cody, and enjoy working with Sumo Logic. Take care.